really forgetful. So
It's also freaking crazy how fast things move in this space. It's like
yeah.
trying to remember things 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
let alone several months ago. It's like, how much has happened? Like,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Because we just got dual funding out before Miami last year, right? Which so dual funding happened, I want to say, gosh, I'm going to get this around like in our March release last year. So it's just over a year, right? But it seems like it's been out forever. I don't know.
Yeah. We have our first Austin Lightning meetup tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Ben Woolsey and me are going to run it, I think. And we have special guests, Michael, who I think he's from, I'm going to get this wrong. I always get it wrong. I think he runs Oshi. I think
Michael Atwood?
Yeah, Michael Atwood.
He runs it. Oshi, you got it right.
Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah, we're super excited to have him out. He did a lot of really great work in Miami, like boots on the ground kind of work, getting vendors in Miami to like start accepting Lightning. And so I'm really excited about having him talk at our first inaugural Lightning Dev meetup here in, I think it's Lightning Dev meetup.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
It's amazing. I mean, what are we at? Three like official weekly meetings now?
Monthly, I think, but yeah.
Yeah. Monthly, yeah.
Yeah.
3 weeks of monthly meetups in Austin now.
I know you guys are getting me up into Austin like all the time now. I was like, I don't know. Someone's like, Lisa, when are you moving to Austin? And I was like, what counts as moving? Like if I'm here half the month, like does that count? Can we just say it happened? I don't know.
As long as you say it officially.
I see.
We'll allow it.
I see. I have to make an official announcement. I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet. I still got like Houston hometown pride, like.
What's going on in Houston these days? Is it humid?
I haven't been there in a while. Yeah, I think it's getting humid. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's hot and humid.
I've been getting yelled at in the YouTube comments for not introducing guests. I'm sitting down with Lisa Neigut and Kyle Murphy. Lisa from Base 58, Kyle from Pleb Lab. Both working on the Bitcoin Plus Plus conference that's going to be here in 3 weeks?
4?
5. We have 4 full weeks, and then like at this point, I think like a day or 2.
Okay. What is it, June
7th through 10th.
7th through 10th.
Yep.
And so I titled this.
With a couple of after parties scheduled for all day on the 11th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wait, I didn't get the invite to that. What's this?
It's like the Zaprite sponsored Taco Pleb Crawl.
Oh, okay.
And then obviously the private invite only if you use BTC Bum like steak dinner. So
all right.
you didn't
see
get
why I
an
didn't
invite
get
because you
invited
didn't.
yet. Yeah, I see now.
Not using the promo codes you're trying to win and whatnot.
Yeah. So we titled this Developing Bitcoin Developers. Base 58, Lisa, and Sean. What's Sean's last name?
Stack.
Scipio Johnson.
Okay.
Call him Stakamoto.
Okay, Stakamoto. Lisa running Base 58, trying to, not trying to, they started a class to teach individuals how to develop on Bitcoin. Kyle runs Pleb Lab with our boy Carr, who's in the corner over here, producing the show, fostering Bitcoiners who are building an environment and accelerator to allow them to build. You guys are put Bitcoin Plus Plus together to have a conference where people learn how to develop, and then there will be a multi-day hackathon after the learning sessions. Why do you guys feel so passionate about fostering the development community in Bitcoin?
It's a great question. I mean, I think my thing with starting Base 58 is just like, there's a lot of I think devs that want to get into the ecosystem, and I'm really into interfaces, not like interfaces, but kind of like integration work. Like if you don't provide like a interface for people to be able to access a service or something, or get into an ecosystem or a community, I think it can be really daunting and difficult. So I don't know, it just seemed like a really obvious thing to take this knowledge that I had and kind of a lot of experience in teaching. I used to be a math tutor. I was a math tutor since my sophomore year of high school all the way through my end of college, right? So that's 8 years of tutoring geometry kind of stuff. And it was okay, I know how to teach stuff. I know Bitcoin transactions at this point really well. A lot of the work I had to do on Lightning had to do with building transactions. So that was just stuff I knew really well. It was it's really easy and like not a lot of work for me to provide this interface, right? Like you set up a class, you set up a structure, you set up like a few days of like, here's this calendar, you know, show up these days, pay me some money, show up to like the online class. And like at the end of it, you will like know a lot more about how Bitcoin works at like the protocol level than you did before, right? And the whole theory behind that, like, I mean, the whole theory is that like, and I think we've, you know, we just started in like February, so it's been what, like 4 months. So we're still like super new in terms of getting people in classes and stuff. But I think we've had like our second session's gonna end next week. So end of next week we'll have 20 new people that have gone through class at this point. So it's like kind of it's like kind of an early thesis, but the whole idea is that at the end of it, you get people who really understand kind of how the protocol works, and that like is, you know, knowledge is power. Like they feel empowered to maybe try making their own wallet project, or like maybe they're gonna like go out and start contributing to a project because now they like understand what's going on, or maybe these people can like better follow along the mailing list posts because they have enough context to understand what the changes are being proposed are. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if I answer your question about like being passionate about like educating people. I think for me, it's like more of a, you know, it's really easy for me to do this thing and set up this like interface for people to try and get into this ecosystem more easily. Like, let's just see what happens, right? It's kind of an experiment.
Mm-hmm. What are you seeing in terms of the average student at Base 58? Are they coming with a development background, with a particular expertise, or are they fresh to development?
I think it's a kind of a blend. Got like, you know, some new college kids who are in computer science stuff, but still pretty new. We've got like, you know, people who are basically at the retirement stage, who maybe have been developers a long time or worked in IT for a long time and really into Bitcoin. I will say the people that seem to get the most out of the class are like obviously the ones who do their homework, but also I think the people that it really seems to click for are ones that have had a lot of experience or like some technical experience beforehand. Because it is really technical. Like I think I like to kid myself that it's not a super technical thing, but it is. That being said, we've had like, I think like Brad Mills has been in my current class. He's not a technical person, and he seems like he's doing great. Like he asks great questions that sound like he's like understanding and following along. And like even if he's not at a point where he's going to be building transactions by hand by himself anytime soon, I think like, you know, just the amount of level of being able to just see, okay, like here's a number. This is your private key number. Let's do some math. Like here's the math. We will like physically do the math, and you can like see it. And here's like the public key at the other end of it. It's pretty powerful for people, you know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for me, one thing that helped me really understand Bitcoin and feel comfortable, like reading the mailing list and at least having a surface level knowledge of the debates we're going. I was reading Mastering Bitcoin, like understanding UTXOs, how transactions are created, how mining works, how the hashing algorithm works. And as somebody who's not technical at all, I've never written a piece of code in my life outside of some HTML and CSS on MySpace.
MySpace.
It is, I mean, I would encourage people to learn how the stuff works to give you more confidence. It gives you more confidence in Bitcoin at the end of the day. You're like, oh, this is how it works. Like I can understand at least the high level interworkings of the protocol level, and it does seem to work. I'm verifying that this sort of checks out my mind.
Yeah, I also come from a super non-technical background. For me, it's been an evolution of that process of learning just from being plugged into the developer scene, like sitting in an office all day with guys like Super Testnet and all of these like wizards like Ben Carmen and Tony Spaghetti and a handful of these other like brilliant wizards in the space. And it's just kind of like you hear the same things over and over and over again. And even not being technical, it's like once you've heard the same kind of like phrase or word or this thing so many times, you're like, okay, like I've now heard that in so much different context. It's starting to kind of sink in. And then you get to the point where it's like, now I feel comfortable asking questions where I can have them break it down a little bit further. So it's just been like a really cool learning. I haven't read like any technical books. I've done no coding myself. I mean, I'm like not getting ready to go out and build a Bitcoin project. But I've learned a lot from sitting around the guys who are building it. And I think to get to the question of like, why am I passionate about helping these developers build is I think we all have this kind of feeling that the inevitability of this crash of the current system is coming. Like when, we don't really know when like you hit that aha moment, right? Where like it reaches the precipice and it's just all downhill from there. But I've had this conversation with a couple people where it's like, yeah, like when the crash happens and everybody learns their lesson, like everything will just get built and we're going to be fine. But but that idea of kind of like this thought process of waiting until it's all
absolutely
fucked.
necessary.
Like if we believe that catastrophe moment is coming, if you genuinely believe that, then every day you wake up, we should be building like that catastrophe is coming today. Because if we don't know when it's coming, the idea of just waiting until the catastrophe hits, like if the global financial system collapsed today, like Bitcoiners suffer a lot. So like this idea of like just sitting by until the collapse comes and then we'll all just start building happily and Bitcoiners will be fine because we have Bitcoin. It's like we're better off than a lot of people who don't have Bitcoin, but we're not as good as I'd like to be. And I don't think any of us think we're at like peak Bitcoin use cases, peak Bitcoin like resiliency. So the idea is that I'm passionate because I know what's coming. I genuinely believe the ethos that Bitcoiners live by, and I think we should wake up every day and try and support the fostering of the growth of this ecosystem as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I have this, I don't know, it's internal dialogue, whatever it is. I always think of Field of Dreams. If you build it, like, so it's like, is it, if you build it, they will come, or we need to build it as a fail-safe for when they do need to come, or they're like forced to come. And I think fostering a development community to build all this stuff before it's absolutely necessary is a good sort of guiding light to have. But then there's also potential. Maybe the Federal Reserve and the international central banking system can continue kicking the can down the road. And worst case scenarios, if you're building with this crash in mind, and even if it doesn't come, Bitcoin is just a better field to play on, and they just come anyway. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of both. Yeah. It's like if you build it, they will come, which is great because it gets better without the catastrophe having yet like manifested, which is just an improvement in our day-to-day lives. But it's also like if that catastrophe does come, like we're going to keep building. It's just like an easier start point when we get there. Like why do we want to wait and be like not as far along as we possibly could be when we get to that moment? So I think it's a bit of both. Obviously, I think if we hit that catastrophe, building mode kind of kicks off even more thoroughly because the fundamentals of Bitcoin security will play out the way that we all know they will. So
yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts too on the power of getting people to meet in person to do this stuff, because you were mentioning just being in Pleb Lab, hearing Tony, Super Testnet, Ben Carmen talk about all this stuff via osmosis. You're sort of absorbing how all this stuff works. And similarly with me, I was never in an accelerator environment, but going to BitDevs in New York from 2015 until I left in 2020, I often think of my first BitDevs when I went, how nervous I was, like wore a jacket and like slacks, thinking like it was something that you had to get dressed up for, and I knew nothing. I took copious amount of notes. Like the first one I went to was actually a very interesting first BitDevs to go to because it was after the quote unquote Hong Kong agreement, and Russ Yanofsky was explaining SegWit and what was discussed in Hong Kong. And it was literally the first meeting after that. And I had no idea what was going on at the time. I mean, I had heard about the Hong Kong agreement on Twitter, but didn't really understand the gravity of the whole conversation that was going on. And so that was my first BitDevs, and then continuing to go throughout the years helped me develop the confidence to talk about the protocol and write about the protocol in the newsletter and talk about it on the podcast. But I think the in-person experience of being at the meetups and then developing the courage to walk up to some of these developers who are working on core and other parts of the protocol and ask questions and have that immediate response in person was very valuable. Obviously, the work from home, digital nomad theme has grown significantly in the last few years, but I do think what you guys are doing in terms of actually getting people in physical spaces has a lot of value and is very high leverage.
Yeah, and that's why I think Bitcoin++ is going to be awesome, because we're going to get a bunch of people Base 58, the class that we've been doing, is all online right now. It's like a, digital experience. You like log into Zoom and watch me do some stuff on the computer. But I'm really excited. I think we're getting like, I don't know how many people from Base 58, but a good number of them that have taken the class are going to be at the actual conference in person. It'll be the first time they're going to meet other people who've been in a Base 58 and meet, like, maybe for some of them, the first time they're going to get to meet, like, developers actually working in the space already, right? So, I don't know. Yeah, I'm really excited about in-person stuff. I'm bullish on in-person stuff. It's hard to do. I think Base 58, we'd love to at some point to do in-person classes, but I work full-time at Blockstream, so it's definitely not going to happen anytime soon for me. Like, maybe I can find, if we grow into having teachers and stuff, like, that could be something, but.
Yeah.
I think in-person's, I just love people. Like, that's the whole reason Pleb Lab exists, is because we started a Bitcoin club. Just like, it was out of a selfish desire to hang out with Bitcoiners more. I came to BitDevs and it was 125 people in a room with no masks who were into Bitcoin, and I was like, all right, I guess I live here now. And after 2 of them, it was like, okay, this whole thing is a bit too much for me. So like, that barbecue thing we do at the end, though, that's all right. Like, can we just do that for 2 hours? And it has just continued to grow and grow and grow. And here in Austin in particular, the value of community is like, yeah, it's great for learning. It's great for building. It's great for a lot of things. But really, like, the base of all of that, the most valuable thing in my mind is just those connections with other people that you care about. Our good friend Justin Moon, who just came to peek in, was the man who basically said, he was talking about institutions and kind of BitDevs becoming an institution, and he was like, you guys have that at Pleb Lab. He's like, people don't see it yet, but you guys have 5 guys in a room who love one another, and that's powerful. And that's kind of what we are trying to build here in Austin, or at least I'm trying to build here in Austin, is like, this thing is bigger than just a network or an asset. It's about all of the people who participate in it. I think that matters a lot.
Yeah, people are important. People are good.
Yeah.
We're building something that is hopefully going to benefit people, already is benefiting people, and you have to have people in mind, and meeting in person. Yeah, that's another reason I moved to Austin. I was living on a barrier island on the coast of New Jersey, where the average age on the island was 65 years old, and nobody knew what Bitcoin was, and I was just like going crazy. So coming down here for me was part of the main reason, was just being around people building, and they're so much more productive. I mean, I've been extremely more productive in the first 6 months, 7 months that I've lived here than I was in the 2 years prior, when I was by myself in my father-in-law's bedroom on a barrier island in New Jersey.
Yeah. It's been the most productive year of my life without question. Austin is just moving so fast. It's insane.
Yeah.
Bitcoin moves fast. Bitcoin moves real fast in Austin. It's crazy to watch it all kind of playing out.
Yeah. So let's talk about Bitcoin Plus Plus. What do we have planned?
Oh man, I'm excited. I'm super excited. We've got 2 great days of workshops and talks from a bunch of builders, and really tried to like also get educators. So Jimmy Song is going to be there. I think Justin Moon's going to do something. Base 58 is going to have a little like, one of our workshops, etc. So really trying to focus on like, if you're interested or curious in Bitcoin, maybe you're a developer, maybe you're new to deving, maybe you're a long old hand in crypto, the ecosystem as a developer, but want to find out what's going on in Bitcoin and get like introduction to all this stuff. We've got really great speakers lined up. We've got Fabrice from, he's from Async, which is like a Lightning implementation. He's going to do an awesome intro to Lightning deep dive, I think, which is going to be great. So 2 awesome days of learning and meeting people and networking, and we're going to play a LARP. We're going to have a Smash Brothers tournament. We're going to have a dinner with a bunch of the sponsors for the workshop days who are looking to either recruit or give grants to people that are developing in the Bitcoin space. So really just hoping to like, connect people to ways, like first we're going to like bring people in and get them interested in maybe all the different stuff and ways that they can get involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and then hopefully also introduce them to people that can pay them money so they can stay or figure out a way to like learn and explore more about what they're learning. And then Kyle and Pleb Lab are doing a 2-day hackathon. 2-day hackathon after that. So the idea is you come, you learn a bunch of stuff, you meet some friends, you maybe like talk to some people at some companies, and then the next 2 days, they're going to be at Bitcoin Commons. They're going to be here, I think, and they're going to be working on projects. So maybe, you learn something that you want to like build on or expand on, or you've met some people and you want to like try and solve a problem together and see what happens. So
I think it's the best collab of all time, perhaps, in Bitcoin. It's like 2 days of learn and like meet people already actively working in the space. It like the two sides of the coin fit so well together, where it's like if you're looking to get involved in the space but aren't necessarily somebody looking to go start your own company, it's like come and learn like what's being built on Bitcoin, who's building on Bitcoin, meet the people building in Bitcoin, hiring in Bitcoin, and then on the tail end of it, it's like, okay, also here's like a fun opportunity to build something cool, and if you're more entrepreneurial, like let's get you plugged into that ecosystem as well. So
And during the first 2 days, is there going to be like siloed tracks where like, all right, if you want to focus on protocol, you go with this group. If you want to focus on Lightning, or is it more
I
broad
guess
brush?
I could try and do that with. It wasn't that like master plan. It was
So-
really just me like asking people that I knew what they were working on. I thought it was cool to come like
Yeah.
give talks. So no, it's not that structured.
Conference 1, Marty, man.
I'm
Cut
so-
us some slack, dude.
sorry
Maybe
for-
next time. Yeah, maybe next time we'll have. Tracks seem like a great idea. What a great invention. We should definitely try that.
No, I like the broad brush. I'm sorry for putting.
No, you're good.
Oh,
Just
no, you're
kidding.
totally
Yeah. No, I'm messing with you. But, and then the hackathon you guys have, is it just go build anything, or you have
So
themes?
we'll kind of have obviously I think there's a strong potential that some of the people that like learn about things during the first 2 days meet some cool people, probably preemptively planning building things. But we will also have our sponsors on our end that are kind of sponsoring the hackathon side of things that'll come in and present their companies, their APIs, and some of the things that can be built on that side. So there's I mean, we have more than 12 million sats we're giving away for prizes, so there will be a handful of different categories and potential things to be built on top of.
And what would you say to anybody who's a bit apprehensive to take the plunge to buy the ticket to Bitcoin Plus and come to Austin and build?
I think if you're considering the plunge, like I shared it yesterday, so I mean, and honestly, after sharing it, we're now down to like 22 tickets with 4 weeks to go. So if you're considering the plunge and you're literally just sitting on the fence, probably not going to make it.
You got to
So,
smash by.
Yeah, probably just smash by.
Well,
There's a couple of discount codes out there. Discount codes out there. So like save 10% with BTC Bum. Get yourself a steak dinner if you tweet it at me. Or just, find the other ones. They're out there too.
I'm giving Kyle a look because we all like there's 4 of us that are kind of like the main organizers. We all got our own discount code. I think we're running a competition. I don't remember what you win, but you win something. Yeah, Kyle's gonna get. Mine's Nifty. If you type in Nifty, you get 10% off. I'm
But
not
no
offering
steak dinner with that one,
Yeah,
just
I'm not
saying.
offering a steak dinner though. I'm sorry. Like,
How would you explain like learning Bitcoin development for the first time to somebody who's like, oh, it's too daunting? Like, is it too daunting? It is daunting, but
I
is
think
it too
it's-
daunting?
I think it's daunting. Yeah, I think that's really fair. I think I think it's kind of what you guys were saying earlier. Like there's this kind of concept of repeat exposure. Like if you're interested in it, like I think you kind of have to just accept that you're going to be in over your head, and like that's fine. Like at the end of the day, like no one cares if you don't like totally know everything or nothing or whatever. Like the people who are there and are showing up are like excited. Like, why are people presenting at this conference? Why was it so easy for me to get like awesome speakers to come and talk? It's because they're really excited about telling people what they're working on. So like it's not about like, if you're feeling like some apprehension, like that's fine, but like the people that you're coming to learn from and listen to are like just there because they're excited about it and want to tell you about it, and like I'm sure they've got things that they don't know a lot about, and like part of the reason that they're maybe are like presenting it is because they've got like questions or interesting problems that they want help with as well, so like I don't know. I think it's a little bit about like why I think it's like useful to like if you're feeling like apprehensive or you feel like there's a lot going on or like you're never gonna like be able to figure out or understand. It's like maybe that's like I think the first I think step to like getting over that is like accepting that maybe that's okay if you're not able to, like, okay, that's fine. No one's asking you to understand all of it or even like produce the next amazing like BIP that's gonna change the world. Like most people that are here aren't like that's not like what we're doing either. We're just like working on problems we think are cool and interesting and we love to share what we're working on.
Yeah. I think that piggybacks on something I've told like a lot of people over the last 6 months as well, where even non-technical people, I think it applies technically, but like I've had a lot of people come to me like, how can I do something like what you've done, where it's like you don't have a technical background, but you're building something in Bitcoin. And I've basically had the same answer over and over again, which is just create 2 lists, like sit down and write out a list of things that you enjoy doing, and then a list of things that you know you're good at doing. Because if you enjoy doing it, you'll be able to do it for like a really long time without making like a fortune doing it, because you enjoy it. And if you're good at doing it and you do it long enough, I think you'll find a way to make money doing that. And everything is coming to Bitcoin. So like things you enjoy doing, things you're good at doing, find a place the 2 of them just like kind of cross paths and just go do that in Bitcoin. Like it could still be daunting, but if you enjoy doing it and you're pretty good at it, just keep doing it. I think eventually it'll work.
Consistency is key. We say that a lot here.
Yeah. You know, showing up. Like, yeah. I had a friend at some point, I don't know why I was like asking people what they wanted their legacy to be. Sometimes I get on like weird kicks where I'm like,
I like these kicks.
Yeah. And like someone's like, okay, Lisa, what's your legacy? And I was like, I think I want my legacy to be just like showing up. Like that sounds like, and the person I was telling this the conversation, one of the, I guess the memorable conversations like friends I had was like kind of like, that's not good enough. And I was like, I think showing up gets you like a lot farther than you think, man. Like, you know, and like if you like, what was it, like Woody Allen was like the whole 90% of success is like showing up kind of thing. I think that's pretty true. Also kind of wanted to like touch back on this thing that I think we keep kind of bringing up is like everyone's like, oh, I don't have a technical background. I don't like, you know, like, look, man, I don't have a technical background either. Like, I went to business school at the University of Texas. Like, I got into programming when I was, like, 22, 23, right? Like, I grew up in a technical household. Both of my parents are engineers. But, like, when my sister was taking comp sci in high school, I was taking photography and Spanish because I didn't want to be an engineer like my folks, you know? Mm-hmm. So, like, I think, like, you know, like, you can... Like, being technical is, like, I don't want to be like a state of mind, but, like, you know, like, figuring out how systems work is, like, technical work. Like, maybe you're not, like, building technical things with code, but I don't think that means anything about your ability to, like, understand the ecosystem or participate or, like, follow along with discussions, etc. Like, the only thing that like actually getting into the code helps with, and like this really depends on, and it really depends on what you're doing with code when you like actually sit down to do it. A lot of people write code and like it doesn't move the needle on their understanding of Bitcoin at all, like ever. But like, you know, it's like, what are you doing when you're like spending time in like the technical side? Are you like learning about how Bitcoin is put together and like how the parts work? Or are you like, you know, plumbing some stuff together to make a web page? Like both things are totally valid, but like, I don't know. I think there's just like, it's like a big like grade. And if you're not technical now, it doesn't mean that like you can't learn stuff, you know?
Right. Like, I mean, engineering is problem solving, right? Like we got a guy in our office, John, founder of Zaprite, UI UX guy, built an entire platform with a back end, taught it to himself because he had a problem he needed to solve and he wanted to solve it. So he just went out and did it. And like, again, consistency, right? Like he didn't know what he was doing, but he knew he had a problem. He knew he wanted to solve the problem. And like you learn the technicals along the way because it matters to you.
Yeah, just keep chipping away, chipping away. Yeah. Then again, going back to, even if you're not technical and you're worried about not being technical and being like, oh, maybe I shouldn't learn this again. And going back to like the ethos, if you truly believe and don't trust, verify. Like this is the best way to verify. Like I was saying earlier, like I had to read Mastering Bitcoin. I was like, how the fuck does this work? I need to verify it. And in terms of building your confidence in Bitcoin, I think it's the most high leverage thing you can do is dive in, and you don't have to be able to write the code. You don't even have to be able to understand everything that's going on, but having that high level knowledge of how everything works together will give you more confidence in days and weeks like this week where Ponzi's blowing up and the price crashing and everybody and their mother screaming about Bitcoin about to fail. And you'll be like, no, like I know this works. Like,
yeah, this has been a crazy week. I don't know. I've really been enjoying this week. I'm such a like, the price should go lower, like lower, lower. Like, I don't know.
It's a fascinating time where it's like, 18 months ago, I was all about lower prices all the time. Now it's like things have changed a little bit in the sense that it's like I've gotten more plugged into the kind of builder ecosystem, just like watching the traditional and kind of crypto markets all just bloodbathing all together all at the same time. It's like really unfortunate while trying to raise capital for businesses. And I mean, like things are still churning along, and if you're building something of value, I think you'd probably be fine. It's just it's slightly different than it used to be when it was just me just sitting outside of it as a hodler and trying to buy and accumulate as much as possible. At this point, I don't have anything to buy it with. I have like 50% of my Bitcoin like locked up in Unchained for loans for the business. Like trying to raise capital is tricky when no one really knows what's happening with the markets. So
the markets. What the hell is going on?
yeah.
Like if we go into a stagflation, it seems like it's
we're already in
aren't we
stagflation.
already-
Yeah,
My
exactly.
other
Aren't
thing
we
is
already
like
there?
we're already in a recession. Like,
Yeah.
we've been in a recession
Well,
for a
yes.
few months now.
so if we're getting technical
Sorry.
from the MBER definition, we have to wait until Q2 GDP numbers come out.
That's always
July.
like, but that's always
We're in the
a
middle of it, though.
trailing indicator, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
numbers are always a trailing indicator. Like I can look around and be like, yes, we're in a recession. Like,
Yes. No, it's pretty
clear.
obvious.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And what did we come in today? 8.5, 8.7% CPI year on year?
I think it was
Oh
8.3.
well, no, is it? I don't know what
I
that
don't
number is. The one that came across my desk recently was a friend of mine posted the I bonds. So there's this bond program you can buy. Every individual in the U.S. can pay You can buy $10,000 worth of I bonds, and they pay like a base rate plus a fluctuating rate. The fluctuating rate updates every 6 months. And that's like the official like CPI thing or whatever. It's 9.62.
Oh, lovely.
So you can get 9.62 on $10,000 worth of bonds that you buy. Fun fact though, so like the fixed rate is at 0 and the fluctuating rate is the one that's at like if you double it. So it's a 6-month rate, so it's 4 point something, but you double it and it's 6 point whatever. And 9.6. Yeah.
It's transitory though, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, that's why they're only changing, the fluctuating part, not the I don't know.
Oh, I don't want to get too heavy, but it's scary. I mean, just personally, my wife's due to give birth in the next couple of weeks, and you're seeing these like baby formula shortages, and
Yeah.
we're in a position where unfortunately my wife is not able to breastfeed, and it's like, holy shit, like I can have all the Bitcoin in the world if you can't produce
Yeah.
that formula.
Yeah.
Like I've been trying to just front run the formula shortages. Things are, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. And you think of that on a wider scale, and there's
gonna be a lot of suffering in the next like 8 months, I think.
It's like the kind of the value proposition of, I think, why I'm so passionate about community, right? It's like, obviously it doesn't solve every problem. Like our community is not yet solving for baby formula shortage problems, but that growth of a network of people that care about one another and support one another in those hardest times when things are really shit hitting the fan, it's great to have people that you genuinely know you can fall back on, that you can lean on, that support you, and because you support them, it's like if things are really going to get quite ugly and really painful, like it's when you get there, it's people really, I think, that solve for a lot of the problems you're running into.
Yeah, and it's, again, the reason I'm down here is I want to be around the people building, because I do, maybe it's hubristic, but I do think like the people, you, Carr, the people building in this space are going to, like, we can't depend on the politicians to do this. Like we have to build our way out and like build these communities, like what's going on with the beef initiative and these tangential sort of grassroots efforts that are going on around Bitcoin are going to be the way that we get out of this mess and finally wake people up. Like, hey, they're not coming to save you. Like you have to save ourselves. And that mentality is very apparent here in Austin and just throughout Bitcoin.
I'm gonna be like
globally,
throughout Texas, excuse me. No.
Texas, but more broadly, like, there are bit devs all over the world. There's
true.
people,
Yeah.
like, even though we're talking about like meeting up in BitSpace, it is cool to meet up in the digital world too, and sort of spot these trends and be
And
like,
this
here's
is-
where we need to work.
Yeah, and this is why I think growing the community and finding people that are really like get and understand Bitcoin, are excited about it, and getting them more involved and making it such that they can be like fully engaged in terms of like maybe a career or a company that they're building, or like maybe they're doing open source work and are sponsored by a company that is doing like, you know, like a exchange that's got money or something that they're putting towards Bitcoin development. It's so important because, like, you know, the more people that you have working in the space, you know, it just kind of, I think, makes the whole community stronger. It makes it more resilient, right? Like, you know, in technology, we talk like, so on like a project like, you know, Core Lightning, which is the project we work on for Blockstream, you kind of like, there's like certain parts of the code base that like really only one person really understands how it works to some extent. You call that like the bus factor. Like if that person were to get hit by a bus, how many buses would have to like, how many people would have to be on the bus and the bus fall off a cliff before that particular part of the code base is like lost forever, right? And like, so Bitcoin probably has a bus factor, right? Like there's probably parts of the Bitcoin protocol that like, unless we're like people like myself who've like spent, you know, 4 years at this point learning from all the smart people at Blockstream and the larger Bitcoin community about how Bitcoin transactions work, what decisions were made, why those decisions were made, what were the like founding kind of engineering principles that a lot of these decisions and like the protocol got built out of. Like, you know, without someone like me and Stack doing that work to like educate people on why the things in Bitcoin are the way they are, like it is going to be kind of fragile, right? So that's why, like, you know, teaching more people about why Bitcoin is the way it is and how it is like really important at like even the technical level. So that like, yeah, I don't know, like as the community grows and as like, maybe like, I don't know, if things do get tough for people, you know, not every core dev is going to be able to keep working on Bitcoin forever. Yeah. We got a like replacement factor, so to speak, or
don't get hit by a bus, Lisa.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, people like Russ Yanofsky was a bus factor there for a while when he was separating the node from the wild architecture in core.
I didn't know about that, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I believe it, like, because he was the one, because that was very,
in
the
depth.
way I understand it, was very in-depth grunt work that nobody else wanted to do.
Work. Yeah, it's a lot of maintenance work. And this is the thing about core, right? Like a lot of this stuff, like core is not sexy these days. I mean, Bitcoin core is like not like the sexy new.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm into it. I'm like way into it. I think that it brings in different types of personalities that are probably like more focused on actually like caring about the project as like a maintenance, like, you know, you need the gardeners at this point that are into like weeding and making it better and doing like incremental improvements, etc. Yeah, so I think it's like great, but like, you know, it's like at one point you gotta like train, you gotta like get new gardener, you need a gardening program. Like here's like where the shovels are, and like this is where, you know, we put the manure for like to keep the stuff going. Like I think so, having like a pathway for people to get into that project. I mean, I'm making it really sound unsexy, but I guess that's kind of the point, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the space is challenging, right? It's sexy in the sense that it works. It's like less sexy, if you will, in the sense that like you're gonna build all of these sexy new things on top of it. But the fact that it was sexy the way it needed to be got it to the point where it was like, okay, now we can build these sexy new layers on top of it because it works. It just like, it did exactly what it was supposed to be. It was attractive in all of the right ways to all of the right people. Now, obviously, the yin and yang is to Lisa's point. Like, we have to continue that. Like, there needs to be some level of education for people that are going to continue to secure it and watch it and make sure that it keeps doing what it's supposed to do. I think that'll happen just because the incentives are there. Like, the Bitcoin itself is incentivized to keep the right people in the right places at the right times.
Yeah. And the big meme has always been like, Bitcoin's too hard to develop on. I'm going to go develop on Ethereum or Solana or something like that. Do you think, have you noticed any changing in those winds of people who made that move first, being like, I want to go build something easy, who understand that maybe the trade-offs other protocols make don't fine-tune for longevity? And so
minimally, I mean, I don't know on Lisa's side, but on our side, I've been trying really hard to kind of push this conversation around not like changing the cultural narrative, because I think Bitcoin's culture is...
Does Bitcoin have a culture? Or is it many cultures?
There's probably many cultures within kind of like an umbrella-ish culture. I mean, there's a lot of commonalities, right? Like, not everybody agrees on everything, but like the culture to the sense that like what we have here in Austin, right? Like people don't agree about everything or on everything, but everybody like puts those differences aside to work together because we know that we have to. Like it's either we all freaking burn together or we all work together. And while we don't have the everything exactly aligned, that like we all put that away. And the culture of like putting our differences aside to work together, I think that's the culture I'm trying to kind of overlay, is that culture's real. And it's like we're all trying to actively support one another in this thing that we're working towards. I think we're, relative to some of the altcoin, shitcoin, like marketing, I think is where we still have room for improvement. Our culture is, in my opinion, as good as it gets. I think the Bitcoin community at large has room for improvement in marketing that culture. There's a lot of kind of like doom and gloom and like this just overarching like everything's hard, everything's a bad time, like prepare for the worst of the worst. And like that's true, we're trying to do that. But if we're trying to get more people to come in and build so that we are more prepared, I think we need to make it seem more appealing. We need to make it seem like there's like this great community that you can get plugged into and you can actually have fun building and working in Bitcoin. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but pretty much the moment I got plugged into Bitcoin, I've been having mostly a great time ever since, especially around other Bitcoiners. Like when I'm with other Bitcoiners, it's always a good time. I think as a community, we could do better about kind of getting that messaging out there.
Come build. It's fun.
Yeah.
You're going to change the world.
One thing about the Bitcoin protocol, at least for technically minded people, I shouldn't say that, people that like computer system stuff, once you start, like, at least it happened to me, like, reading Mastering Bitcoin and, like, figuring out how Bitcoin works is just, like, it's such a beautiful system. It's just, like, it's, like, the way that, like, it married, like, incentive design with, protocol design is just, like, actually incredible. And, like, I think that's part of why, like, I wanted to do Base 58 is just make it so that more people can, like, actually see it, like, for themselves, how cool and interesting and, like, well-designed things, like, I don't know. I spent a lot of time. I think recently I've been tweeting a lot about like jewels and jewelry and stuff, just because like I really like beautiful things. Like it's just kind of like a thing. I spent a lot of time working at Etsy and living in New York City, and like the design communities there are like I think some of the best in America, maybe not even the world, really. Like let's be real. And it's like so like read things that are like well designed. Like you can tell well designed things. Like even beautiful objects, like, I've been looking at a lot of like just antique jewelry because I'm weird, whatever. I have like free time. And like antique jewelry is like really expensively priced, but it's like you look at it and you're like, that's ugly as shit. Like, why would anyone spend like $15,000 on this like horrible like thing? Like no one's going to wear that, right? But there's also like, along with that other stuff, there's also some like the stuff that's like actually well designed and old and super exquisite is worth like millions of dollars, if that makes sense. Like old things that like beautiful objects like retain their beauty across time, so to speak. Like and you can see it in like just like well classically designed things are just like they're more expensive in the aftermarket, like the vintage stuff, and like people actually like buy them and value them because they like meet some like I don't know, like I don't want to be like ideal of beauty that every human shares. I don't that's like almost getting into like the philosophy side of aesthetics, which is very interesting and like a whole very like separate topic. But I actually like truly believe that like Bitcoin is a beautiful object, and like it as like incentive design, and like there's like a few things that we've changed, and like it's not like I don't want to say like the protocol itself is fixed, but like the system engineering that went into it I think is like the level of like classic beauty of like actual engineering, like engineering classics, so to speak. And those are the sorts of things that like you as like an alien a person who wants to write computer protocols like 50 years from now will be able to like look at Bitcoin and be like, wow, this is like still cool and interesting 50 years from now and beautiful as a system, and the way that like I think not a lot of other things are. And I think what I'm trying to say is that like that beauty sort of sells itself sometimes. Like once you introduce people to it, like smart people understand what the value is of that. Like,
Yeah, it's like, oh wow. I mean, I'm constantly shilling Gwern's Bitcoin is worse is better, because he wrote that blog in 2012, I believe, maybe even 2011, when altcoins started popping off, and people were like, oh, Bitcoin's too slow, it's too dumb, you can only fit so many transactions. He was like, no, this is the point. Like, this is part of the beauty of the design. It is dumb for a reason, like quote unquote dumb.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, you think of like 10-minute block time. The difficulty adjustment specifically, like UTXO set, it's a push system, like all these things coming together. It is incredibly beautifully designed, and it will be looked back on as, I think, one of like the greatest wonders, like one of the 7 wonders of the world at some point in the future. Like maybe the first like wonder of the world in the digital realm. But it's funny because it also meshes, like you have the social incentives, you have the incentives on the development side, then you have the physical world incentives with mining and its intersection with the energy sector. Like it's
the first time we as computer people, like as like computer people, figured out how to tie the real world to computers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like scarcity, it's just like, it's cool. I don't know, I get really, it's just like, oh, it's so cool. It's just so cool. Anyways, like, yeah, like getting new people in, and when you like actually show them like how cool it is, and like it's the first thing. So one thing I like to talk about in Base 58, I say this, I think, like every class, and like this is my favorite thing to teach, and then like, you know, like just like every class, all right guys, today we're learning my favorite thing. But one of my favorite things to teach in class is about elliptic curves. Like, I freaking love my elliptic curve like intro lecture. And what's so cool about it is like elliptic curve, like Bitcoin was like the first, I'm gonna keep saying it until someone tells me about another system that proves you wrong, but I'm pretty sure Bitcoin is like the first big engineered system that like productionized elliptic curve cryptography, if that makes sense.
What do you mean by productionized?
Like, it's a thing that you and I use on a regular basis, and it like secures our life, and like it changed the way that humans are able to interact with each other because of like elliptic curve crypto. And I think like people might be like, oh yeah, but there's like certs on computers and logins and stuff, and I'm like, okay, like maybe they used it there, but that didn't like change the way that like people interacted with servers when they started using elliptic curve crypto in like other contexts. But like when you like, this was like the first like killer app of elliptic curve cryptography, so to speak. Like it's like tying it to like money systems is like the first time that we took this amazing, cool, really revolutionary like kind of like discovery in the research side of cryptography and like made a killer app, you know, just like cool.
Maybe like the biggest killer app to ever exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the first wonder of the digital world. I was curious if we were now pushing the metaverse. It's like,
Oh.
No.
I mean,
okay.
but that's the thing about Bitcoin, right? Is that like it has this weird like, yeah, it is like kind of a metaverse thing. Like it doesn't physically exist anywhere outside of computers. Like you need computers to have Bitcoin. Like you can't get around that. But like it's like so weirdly tied to the like real world with this like proof of work thing that like it's, I don't know, it's weird.
I think
cool.
I think the proof of work too. I mean, we kind of went on a little
tangent.
Yeah. I guess that was the word I was.
We like
looking for.
tangents here at TFTC.
They're good. They're good sometimes. Like kind of coming back to this space where the altcoiners and the Bitcoiners and like their merger, like some of the stuff she's working on with Base 58, educating people. I think education is one of the most fundamental things for kind of reaching those people, and it's another thing we're really kind of passionate about at Pleb Lab, which is why the collaboration with Base 58 makes so much sense. We're trying to push, I mean, we're working with Jimmy Song and D++ to kind of reinstate like a full Bitcoin focused class at UT Austin. I'm trying to get into other departments beyond just engineering as well. I think like
Economics should be teaching this.
Nick
Yeah,
Baccia just announced a business class that he's teaching at UMass somewhere.
we need a whole program. Like I want to see like a Bitcoin bachelor's degree at UT. And I think another little simple thing that we're working on that I think is super useful to the idea of getting into the space and seeing that it's cool and that you can just very simply that you can do it. one of the other things we're working on currently is trying to create just a landing page, a very simple landing page with like 3 to 5 really fundamental and like easy to build. I mean, maybe not easy to build, but buildable things in Bitcoin. Like, here's tutorials on building a Bitcoin wallet. Here's tutorials on some DLC stuff. Like, here's LN URLs, like push a payment across the network. Just like a simple place where if you're curious about Bitcoin, just give it away. Just like, let's get an access point out there where people who are curious about building on Bitcoin can just find a place to build something on Bitcoin simply. And then if they've already done it, that now they're kind of plugged into this thought process of like, oh, Bitcoin isn't too complex. I can build really cool things on Bitcoin. Then the last step is really just get them plugged into the community. And I think that's really like those two things married together, like education and access to the community. This thing will really start to kick off.
And there's so much to build. I don't want to talk my own book here, but like I'm extremely proud. Like I didn't build it, but DJ, shout out DJ Seeds. I met him at BitDevs during Consensus of 2018. He was 19 at the time. And we just met there and he was talking about wanting to get into Bitcoin development. And he went home. I forget where he's a nomad. I forget where he went after that Consensus, but we kept in touch. He built lncast.com, which was like the first ever like podcast, like pay sats to get access to a MP3 file, which was really cool. And we kept in touch. He reached out to me when he built that. And I was like, oh, like, this is really cool. Yeah, I'd love TFTC to be on there. And then he helped me build the site, tftc.io. And then we just started building stuff in Bitcoin. And like, we didn't have to be protocol stuff. It was practical stuff for my business. I was like, he was like, all right, what can we build with like the Lightning Network? I was like, well, we have a Shopify store. We have a BTC Pay server. Like, how can we get it so people can go to Shopify and pay with Bitcoin directly to our BTC Pay server? And I paid him, and he went and built it. And I'm very proud that BTC Pay server has actually taken his original implementation or integration, excuse me, and sort of grown on it. And now it's like a part of BTC Pay server. And then similarly with the Lightning Network paywalls that we're building, integrating BTC Pay server into Ghost. Like that's the other thing from a business perspective. If you're not technical, what you can do is find these developers looking to build, and you can combine like, hey, I need this for my business with, hey, I'm looking to build something, and pay somebody to build it for you. And it's possible. It's crazy. That's like been my goal over the last few years. Like, how can I integrate BTC Pay server into as many of the things that I touch in my business as possible? So like content delivery, somebody pays 25 cents worth of sats, they get an article that goes straight to my node. Somebody buys some merch. We're spinning up a merch store again, and we'll re-implement our BTC Pay server, and it's going straight to me. And that's like something that's innovative that has never existed before. Mm-hmm. And I'm just some idiot who essentially like bug bountied it with a developer that I became friends with at a BitDevs.
Isn't it crazy though that like getting paid directly is revolutionary?
Right.
Through the internet. It's cool. But
I think it's fascinating to see how much that space you just described is going to evolve. Like I know a guy right now who's kind of working on creating like a Bitcoin agency, where this idea of like plug and play, where it's like you have a traditional business thing or just a business idea that you're trying to kind of get Bitcoin built into. It's like if you're just looking for a quick Bitcoin specific like builder, putting together places where you can get access to that quickly and kind of just maybe not hiring like a full-time person, but that the space is really fascinating to watch grow from the inside out. It's like really cool where this thing's going.
There's so much to build. There's so much to integrate Bitcoin into.
So much. Yeah. We're just getting started.
Yeah. And like the lightning side of things is like the most interesting, because that's where I think you can really supercharge like business operations. You talk about API calls enabled by lightning payments and stuff like that, and other things. So you have thoughts on that? You can give a little.
Yeah, I was like, there's a lot of stuff there. I feel like I haven't quite figured out exactly how that's gonna evolve. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like one thing that I've been seeing develop in Lightning that makes me a little sad is like services that build APIs that you use to access Lightning. So it's not like run your own node. It's like, you know, interact with someone else's like service that will like do the thing. I've seen that, like, I don't know, sorry, that like trend has got me a little down lately. It's cool, but yeah, I know why it's happening. It's because it's like a thing developers are used to using, and they can like build on top of it really quickly because it fits a paradigm they're used to. So it's definitely, I think, a way to supercharge like the adoption of Lightning payments across tons of platforms. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess I've kind of like, yeah, that development of that like particular ecosystem of like how to get paid with Lightning for services online, I think like it's definitely at an interesting inflection point right now, and I'm a little worried about which direction we're gonna end up. So,
where would you prefer to see it go?
yeah, I think it's like, man, the stuff we're building at like Greenlight. I think the things that like Voltage is doing that makes it such that you can like like even like Umbrel, right, like run your own node, and like providing interfaces to like decentralized node stuff, I think is cool. And like kind of just building out interfaces such that like really just working on the interface between, I think like, you know, the labs people did it with like LNC Lightning Node Connect, and we've got something really similar called like Commando that's like, you know, just like the connection to your like node, your personal node, or like your node, wherever it is like, I also like, I have to like admit that I think that's a really hard problem to solve. There's like a lot of hard problems and maintenance around that, and it's probably not going to scale to the next like million people or whatever. So like, I can see why, you know, so there's like I have my node, and here's how I connect to it and do stuff with it, and here's how I like do permissions for my node so that like people can build services that other people can get paid from me from a node that I run. So like facilitating peer-to-peer payments between people that run their own nodes, but as a third-party service. I think that's a hard problem. I think it's not really something that like there's a lot of money in for the person building that service. There's not really a lot of incentive to like build systems that make like peer-to-peer payments possible because you're not in the middle of that payment flow. And so like, I don't know, I think like more people, I think I've seen like more stuff with like, oh, like just like use this thing that has an API and then we can hit the API kind of thing. Or like, you know, use Strike because Strike has an API.
Yeah, I see that. Well, that's why I'm happy there's people like Evan Kalutis out there building things like Zeus. And
yeah, Zeus
like,
is awesome.
Yeah, just, well, like, that's the other thing too. Like, it's not, once you get your nodes set up, your channels set up, like we set ours up in 2019.
How early?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's been running ever since. Like our node is, I mean, it's gone down a few times over the years, but we've always gotten it back up. Our channel management's been good. And then like something like Zeus, once you have, like, you do maybe have to do some grunt work, and that's something you can pay a developer to do that you trust. Like, hey, I'm a business. I want to run a Lightning node so that we're accepting payments directly to the business. I want to, DJ, can you help me do this and set up the flow and manage channels? And then something like Zeus or Zap, when it was being maintained, like you just point the QR code and boom, you have it on your phone, and you can manage your node from your phone. It's not that hard. It does take a little bit of effort in the beginning, but once you have it set up, like it is worth the time investment of that initial setup.
I think it's going to be inevitable though, that like this idea, I see it across like all of the different sectors in Bitcoin right now, is this decentralized centralization, right? Like not everyone is going to run their own node. Like my mom and my grandma, not going to run their own nodes. Like there's like some level of kind of, it is all decentralizing. We're not going to need giant institutions, but you might have within your families or your communities kind of like community institutions, like actually kind of a return to like family banks and community banks and things that aren't giant mega worldwide conglomerates. But I think it is unlikely that we are anywhere remotely close to this idea of like a 100% peer-to-peer decentralized thing. It just, for the average user, that little bit of grunt work is too much grunt work.
I mean, but like, here's the thing, like Stripe could be rolling out a Lightning API in like 2 months, right? Like we don't know what they're working on, but it's totally possible that Stripe would have like a Lightning API, right? Like Stripe's like the enormous, like, you know, dev first APIs for payments thing, right? Like, so when Stripe, let's say Stripe's like launching a Lightning, I don't know if they are, but like hypothetically, like they launched one like tomorrow, right? Like how many devs are now going to be building on Lightning, just calling APIs to some like centralized service thing, you know? Like, I don't know.
Maybe I'm an idealist as like a business owner. Again, going back to like eliminating as many third parties as possible.
Yeah.
Like I wrote this in a thread a couple weeks ago. Like I'm bullish on the relative decent. I don't think it's going to be full. I don't think everybody's going to run their own node. I don't think that's practical. I mean, yeah, I think
At some point, maybe like
I think
hundreds.
most
of
people are
years,
too
I don't know,
lazy,
but
but I
It's
do.
like green light's so important.
But no, like
Okay.
everybody's worried, like all the exchanges are going to be like these massive hubs, and I'm like, oh no, I'm a media company, and I run a node, and if Bitcoin does what we think it's going to do, and all these companies are integrating with Bitcoin, I think you can make an argument that from a business owner perspective, if you truly want to eliminate risk, third party risk, like you're going to pay developers to maintain your node, and you're going to provide liquidity to those nodes, and that's going to happen in media, it's going to happen in finance, it's going to happen in healthcare, it's going to happen.
But this is where, like, you know, what we're doing with Base 58 is so important is someone needs to be training all those people how that works, right? There's going to be like, I think you're right. I think that Lightning is going to be, and like running a node is going to be a really important part of a lot of like business ops maybe at some point in the future. And this is why projects at like getting University of Texas to start having a program or certificate or something where people can learn about all this stuff, because like unless like we're training, unless we're like actually making it such that people are interested in doing that kind of work, have the interface like through a class or a program where they can learn like how to do that and how to make it, you know, like it's like almost like you need like an industry of people running nodes. And this is where I think PlebNet, is so awesome, is it's doing that like in a grassroots way of like training a bunch of people how to run Lightning nodes independently. And that like PlebNet is like, you know, not like the workforce, but that's like the potential like talent pool that like all these businesses will be able to draw from. And without that, like I think Lightning would be like pretty up a creek, you know, in terms of adoption.
Plebnet is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Great resource, great community.
If you're a developer looking to get in the space and you don't want to like contribute to, you don't think you can contribute to like core protocol or like working on a particular Lightning implementation, just focus on learning how to run a node and manage channel liquidity and fees and all that, and people will be looking to hire you.
Yeah.
It's exactly how we started this thing at UT. It's like I was actually at I don't remember if it was a BitDevs or one of our Austin Bitcoin Club meetups, but I met some university guys who knew the head of the engineering department over there, and I started talking with him. And on our first call, the thing that he basically told me was like, there were two things. He was like, one, I don't know what Bitcoiners want. Like when it came to building things, he didn't really understand the community's like desires for what we want built, because they like being on both sides of it. He sees all these things that are being built in the other space, in crypto, and it is a lot of it, like a lot of the things that are over there that like their market is saying there's value for and value in, when it's like I could build that in Bitcoin without changing protocol, without any kind of security flaws, whatever. Bitcoiners don't want it. And so there's like this thing that needs to happen where, like, I think, again, Bitcoiners need to get better at marketing what our culture is and what it is we're looking for and what we're trying to build. But then the other thing was tied into this whole Lightning and node operation is like, he said that at the university, they actually tried running a node and they could not figure out in the course of a semester or two how to like financially incentivize making it worth running. And that's kind of how we got plugged in. D++ was there. I mean, she kind of started PlebNet, so it was a good conversation to kind of figure out how we could go about educating them on all of the channel balancing and everything that happens in running a node, and then pushing further into it to try and get a class going again.
Yeah, well, that opens up like another debate, like again, coming from like the business owner perspective, how do I view node operation at TFTC? Is it a loss lead that just enables us to do cool things that we don't get fees taken from it? Maybe
saving 3%.
Yeah.
Are the on-chain costs less than 3% of what you're earning with it? You know, like you're saving money then.
Yeah, but then like if we can build stuff unique to our operations using our node and Lightning implementations or Lightning integrations that we build in-house, like maybe the node isn't as profitable in terms of like developing routing fees. Maybe it can be, but even if it isn't, like I think the sovereignty of running your own node is worth it being a loss lead. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm idealistic, but
you're using it as like kind of like a vendor, right? Like you're accepting payments over Lightning, right? Like
Yes.
your goal of running the node is for people to be able to pay you, your destination, right? And so like at the end of the day, like I think you probably aren't, I mean, maybe any routing you do is like incidental to your real purpose of like trying. It's almost like, I don't know, like you have like a lot of money and then you end up in prop trading maybe on accident. Like as the company, it's like you have a Lightning node because you want to get paid, and maybe you end up being like a huge routing node that makes you like some decent capital on the side, but that's like incidental to the point of running the node, right?
Yeah. No, or like you maybe not even like fine tuning for routing fees. Maybe you just have a bunch of Bitcoin that you accumulate via this node, and you're like, oh, I have all this Bitcoin. Let's put it to work. Maybe I put it on the ads. Maybe I put it like in like a liquidity pool to get yield on it.
Yeah.
Like so that's the other crazy. Like, how is this going to change? The world of finance is going to be like, this is where like the regulation stuff is just like, oh my God, it could like fuck up everything, because as a media company, like I have this capital and I could put it to work.
Yeah.
By providing liquidity, and like it's become like media first, financial services.
I mean,
like
GE
secondary.
ended up, what was it, like GE Financial ended up becoming like the thing that was keeping General Electric running for a long time. Anyways, not that that's going to happen to your like thing, but I don't know. Yeah. You know, businesses get into different positions and you start doing stuff, but yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the cool thing about Lightning, right? It's like not the barrier to entry, but just like, I mean, the barrier, like getting a Lightning node up and running and figuring out how to make the capital on your node like work for you in whatever way. Maybe it's like receiving payments, maybe it's sending payments, maybe it's trying to like provide the connection between those two parties such that you get, you know, paid for that service. Like I think like that like ecosystem is like so accessible to like anyone in a way that it like never has. Like how many of us like have access to like routing payments for Visa, right? Or even like providing capital, like loan, you know, like the way credit card systems work, right? It's like bank gives you a loan, you like spend some money, the banks like move the money around in the background between the things, like those routing behind the scenes thing, and then they like pay the vendor back like 97% of whatever you agreed to pay them. Yeah, I don't know. I think that, yeah.
I think in the Bitcoin space right now, the more you get involved in it and the more things you plug into, it just becomes like that much more optionality in your business model, right? Like you can start a media company, you can start an education company, you can start an accelerator, you can start a mining company. There's all of these different things that you can start, but like you start it and then you also have this other thing that you can be doing. You could be running a node at your media company. And as this space evolves in ways that I think some of us see some of the directions it's going, but none of us know every direction it's going to go and all of the things that come from it. So the more you plug into these different sectors and these different things you can do, the more kind of redundancy and optionality and potential you're building into your business as things move forward.
And like, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, like every business has like a CFO at some point, right? Every business has needs an accountant. Like every business today touches money. And there's like things that you have to do like with the money, right? And like running a Lightning node might just be the other obvious thing that everyone as a business does, because like you touch money, you touch Bitcoin, so you have a Lightning node, right? Like you touch Bitcoin, so now you have like a whole bunch of like expensive accountants that tell you how to like do the like basis calculations on it, whatever. But like, you know, like businesses touch money. Businesses that touch money will probably at some point also start touching Bitcoin, right? Is the thought.
Yeah. And going back to the point you were just making, Kyle, like that harpens back to what we were saying earlier. Just showing up is like half the battle. Like that's what I feel very fortunate is like spinning up our Lightning node in 2019. And then we've just been showing up and tinkering with it. And I think we have a competitive advantage to many of the other media companies in the world. I'm talking outside of Bitcoin, because we have so much experience from showing up, running it, tinkering with it. And like you said, I don't know how it's going to evolve, but just from being around and playing around with it, we'll eventually, I don't want to say stumble into something, but something will happen where it's like, oh, we can have a competitive advantage from doing this thing with Lightning. And
you already have that competitive advantage, but like the earlier and the more you show up, the more your competitive advantage grows with network effect and like the development of the space and the ecosystem and everything you can do with it. So it's
yeah. Show up, freaks. Just show up. Yeah. What else should we talk about? What are we worried about? Or not, let's go the other way. There's a lot of doom and gloom in the world right now. What are we optimistic about moving forward?
I'm super optimistic about the people that have already gone through Base 58. There's only like, maybe I should probably know this number. It's like around 30 people at this point. But like, man, the excitement and passion and like just like fire these people have now for Bitcoin and building, and the fact that they understand it, you know, they like get it, they see it, they like can make transactions, they understand what's going on with this stuff. Like, I don't know, yeah, I'm just like really excited about like the people that have gone through Base 58 and what they're going to do, and also like all the people that we're going to get in the next batch, you know, like where that's going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, basically touching on the same points, I would say bullish AF on the Bitcoin community. Honestly, grateful and humbled to be a part of kind of assisting in any way that I can the growth of this community. It's been an honor. Really bullish on the path forward for the city of Austin. It's really cool, again, to see just like we're now at 3 meetings a month. I think there's a 4th meeting coming. There may even be a 5th meeting coming. It's just never ending. Bullish on kind of watching as everything develops from the inside out. It's just really, really cool to see what's happening in real time play out. And I think one of the best places to kind of be inside and see what's going on. I know Houston's got some stuff going on, Nashville's got some stuff going on, but the community here in Austin is just like it's something exceptional. And every day that I wake up and get to participate in it, it's just like, I watch everything kind of collapsing and all of the madness that's going on in the rest of the world. And it just like, I mean, I actually had somebody reach out when we first started Austin Bitcoin Club on Twitter that was basically like, don't you see the inherent risk of being in a city? And I was like, yeah, I do. I do actually see that risk, but I had the same answer back then where it's like, it's a calculated risk. And I take that risk because while being in something like really densely populated like a city has its obvious challenges if something were to really go wrong, I'm really bullish on the density of the Bitcoin community here. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people where it's like, if everything everywhere is going to go shit hits the fan, it becomes, in my mind, less about where you are and more about who you're surrounded by when that moment comes. And I don't think there's anywhere on Earth or anywhere else on Earth currently where there's like a higher density of like pro-freedom loving, like builders of the revolution, like preparing for and organizing together for that moment than Austin. So just, I mean, listen, Bitcoin in general, you've said it a couple times, like it's amazing what's happening in this space, but in Austin in particular, like just really bullish on the direction we're heading.
Yeah, at least we know here we'll have enough beef amongst the Bitcoin community.
Thank you, Slim.
Thank you, Slim.
KNC Cattle. We love
that. And it's I do want to end it on an optimistic tip because it is crazy out there.
What about you, Marty?
I mean, I'm just again. I do think I'm optimistic because it does seem like people are beginning to realize that they're not the people, quote unquote, in charge are not coming to save you. It's not a critical mass yet, but I do think that there is a number of people who are beginning to pull up their sleeve and saying, all right, we need to build our way out of this. Again, going back to the beef initiative, Bitcoin obviously is that digital barn raise where people are like, all right, we need to build this new.
Bitcoin is for builders.
Yeah. We need to build this because this seems like it's breaking. And people are putting effort forward and they're being active. So that makes me optimistic. And then, I don't know. I mean,
here's like, this is sort of maybe a little bit of like, not a black pill, but like sort of optimism with some pessimism. A recession is like the best time to build a business because you get, your more potential access to talent at more affordable rates than assuming that you can like find the capital to make it happen. But like, recession's like an awesome time to kind of like regroup and figure out where you're headed and like find people and get people like motivated and like moving in the direction you want them to.
Yeah, no, and it forces you to really be efficient with how you work and allocate capital, which for businesses, learning how to do that at the onset is probably one of the best things that could happen for your long-term viability.
Yeah.
A little proof of work.
Yeah.
Never killed anybody.
No, never did. But now I'm stuck. Now, like, I want to go back to the businesses running. Lightning nodes, you brought up mining companies too, like mining companies that have the stated purpose of accumulating as much Bitcoin on the balance sheet and never selling. Like, imagine, like, they spin up Lightning nodes, they start offering services, they get yield on that Bitcoin. Maybe they're able to subsidize expenses with the yield that comes from that. And I'm very bullish on, and that's the other thing. So going back to, like, these people are not coming to save you. We need to build our way out of this. And that is one thing I want to get out to anybody listening to this is you have to realize this. Like, we can build our way out of this. It's happening. Mm-hmm. The people, quote unquote, in charge are posturing like it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a very good thing.
Right.
You have the agency to actually take control of your financial sovereignty, and then the strength and resilience of your local economy, your state economy, your nationwide economy. You can build it. You don't have to wait for politicians to stroke a check and give it to you.
And there are people out there who will stand with you and support you while you build it. And I think that's also important. Like, you can build it and you won't be alone.
Where do we send anybody who wants to get one of the remaining 22 tickets to Bitcoin Plus Plus? I bet it's less than 20 since we've been talking.
It's 0 left.
btcplus+.dev. So BTC,
plus spelled out.
Yeah, plus.
You can't put a plus sign in the URL.
plus.dev. Yeah, it's an amazing URL. I got to give props to Carr for picking that one up. So.
And then the Carr's got the site up.
That looks gorgeous. Yeah, we just ordered stickers off one of his designs. I'm super excited. Yeah, we're giving out stickers. Come get a sticker. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, Carr, is there anything you want to throw in here before?
Yeah, Base 58 and Plug Lab as well. I think we're doing something really important in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So if you're out there, definitely support and like and subscribe, like we say, Marty.
Like, subscribe. Yeah, go like and subscribe. We're gonna win.
Come and build with us.
I think we've already won, guys. Like, no.
No, we have. It's like we have already won. The question just becomes, like, if the truth shall set you free, it's like, what do you do with the truth? And if we've already won, at what pace do we want to finalize it, right? And that's, I think, the question that we have to ask now is, like, at what pace? We've won. We could do it in 100 years. We could do it in 200 years, or we could try and get it done in the next 15. And I think I'm bullish on the next 10 to 15. Let's just go out there and get it done now.
You heard it here first. Get it done.
Get it done. And come to Bitcoin Plus Plus.
Lisa, Kyle, thank you for doing what you guys do. Thank you for educating, getting people together. It's very important work.
Thanks for having us, dude.
Thanks for coming. Lisa, first repeat guest in the studio. It's much different than when you first came.
Yeah, it's very different. I'm into it.
We were pushed up in the corner.
Thanks for having me back, because it's a real honor. Thanks. Yeah.
You have an open invite whenever you want to come.
Cool.
So,